if my goal is to get to €1 million per month, I've no idea how to get there. I have to scale this. I have to build out a new team. Who do I have to hire? Do I have to work with it? Like all these thoughts start to come together, and that's how you start thinking bigger. So remove the how, and then when you wake up in the morning on your vision board, have goals on there that are so big that basically when you look at them, you're like, you don't know how to get there, but throughout the day, you'll start to think of ideas and different thought patterns. He had a brand new Mercedes. He had a watch. He wore suits. I knew he was on holidays 2 or 3 times a year. I knew he had a massive house in the countryside in Ireland because he rented it to my father a couple of years back, where we went down and stayed there. So I was like, okay, this guy's doing something. I need to speak with him. Michael Jordan done some illogical shit over the years in order to become Michael Jordan. So did any athlete. So did Cristiano Ronaldo, who moved away from his parents at 11 years of age. That's an illogical thing to do, but looking back and seeing that, it's like, okay, that was the step that people need. So people need to remove the logical step and understand that people who are doing big things, they don't do logical things. That is basically what society tells them to do. They just don't.
So we've been planning this podcast for such a long time, man. I think it's actually been over 2 years.
Yeah, finally we're here.
We first started it, you were in Marbella at the time. I was in Bali at the time, and you asked me to come to Marbella. I was like, oh, you should come to Bali, and then fucking scamdemic happened, and then just jumping around, but 2 years later, we're finally sitting there, man. A lot has happened in that period for you, and that's only in 2 years, and obviously you've been at this for a long time. And I was going through a lot of your work, and I saw on the 8th of January 2021, Yahoo Finance named you one of the top 30 male entrepreneurs to look out for. It's a pretty good call after what's happened in the last 2 years. How do you think you went from pretty much being broke to literally where you are now?
I suppose getting one foot in front of the other. Like I always say, that the quote that you might have heard me say before is that 18 feet of the car. So like a car light only goes 18 feet, but you can drive from New York to LA with that 18 feet just continuously opening up. So for me, it's just, I just put one foot in front of the other, man. I just researched one thing, implemented it, researched another thing, implemented it, and just try to get one foot in front of the other every time.
Where did that come from though? Where did you get that idea from?
Came and put my back against the wall. No other option, man. Basically, found an opportunity. I was waiting for this opportunity for a long time. You know, throughout the whole of school, I was always that guy. Something's going to come. And then when it came, I was like, I'm not letting it get slipped through my fingers. So it's basically putting one foot in front of the other and just making sure that I'm not letting it slip through, and making sure my back is against the wall, so I have no other option. To burn the boats, as they say.
100%, man. And burn the boats, something I've learned from Rob recently. He's literally burn the boat all the time.
No other option, man. No successful person has a plan B.
Do you think when you split your focus, it dilutes the progress?
Yeah, if you chase 2 rabbits, you catch none, for sure. There's a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. It was actually the second book I ever read. It was actually the third book I ever read. I read The Secret, which someone dumped in my lap, and I was like, what the hell is this? Read a book, and I never thought I'd seen myself reading a book before. Now I've read hundreds. So I read The Secret, Think and Grow Rich. And then the third book was The One Thing by Gary Keller. So yeah, it completely dilutes your focus, which is a struggle that I have at the moment right now, is trying not to chase the 2 rabbits and making sure that I'm sticking to the priority list.
But you have a lot of brands now under. And I think you should put some context in terms of what they actually are. So firstly, why did you diversify out of just your agency to begin with? Why didn't you just keep on that path to just do what Marcus Hustle says and just fucking scale the shit out of it?
Shout out to Marcus Hustle. But I suppose it was the natural transition. So very few people know this, but I'm gonna say it. I flopped 2 clothing brands over the past couple of years since COVID first came. I think it was January. Was that 2020? 2020 when that came. Also 2021. 2 years in a row, I tried to start a clothing brand and both failed. One was called Script, and the other one was called Elysian.
I remember the second one, yeah.
Yeah. So they both got nowhere. So I always wanted a brand. And it felt like the natural transition for me from working with so many brands. Like getting them to, I've seen brands go from €15,000 per month to €2 million per month. Like I've seen it firsthand over a 2-year period. So I was like, this seems like a natural progression for me to eventually have my own brand. And it opens up my career path, right? So if I have an agency, I'm the agency guy, right? I can deliver an amazing service along with my team in the agency world. But when I have the brand, it opens up my career path in regards to, it feeds into the previous thing. So for example, right now I have a fulfilment partnership in the north of Ireland, and I've so many of my agency clients are now in that same fulfilment partnership, because I've went out of my way to connect all those dots, and now I'm more valuable to my clients. So it was a natural career progression for me, and it opens up the actual potential for growth. So for me, it was going horizontal and then going vertical with the things that I went horizontal with. So I always do try to position it as one company. So my company,
Powered name,
the Powered Group is the group of companies. But basically, the goal is that I have one company that grows e-commerce brands. We do that through investing, we do that through marketing, and we do that through consulting. So it's 3 divisions of one company. So it was just like the natural progression. And Grant Cardone is a great mentor of mine, and his brand is 10X. So he now has like 10X Growth Conference, 10X Investing, 10X Capital, 10X Charities, and 10X Health Services was his late one. So it just opens up that career growth, basically, because I was getting to a certain position with the agency that I was kind of struggling for that next level, and I didn't know, I couldn't really see myself, I couldn't really see that getting to like, the Gary V, like massive corporation with offices and stuff like that, because my staff are all over the world. My staff are in all over Europe, all over the US, etc. So I didn't see myself bringing everybody to Ireland, but logistically I couldn't see it working.
Yeah, of course.
So it just felt like a different natural progression. And I always saved money. So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2018, and I read it again in 2021. And obviously I took the book completely different in 2021, completely different. So I was like, okay, use cash to buy assets was the takeaway from the book. So I was like, okay, I've been saving cash for years. And now when this opportunity came, I was like, yeah, the vision just aligned. And I always wanted my own brand.
Why do you think that the 2 brands flopped when you had so much experience building other people's brands?
Because I've zero experience from starting a brand from scratch. So, for example, I've never worked with a brand that's a brand new startup brand. Like, if you want to work with us now, it's like, you need to be at like around $50,000 per month in revenue. But previously, I've never worked with a brand from scratch, so I didn't know how to get from A to B, but I knew how to go from B to C onwards.
1 to 10.
Yeah. I didn't know how to go from how to actually start at the 1, but if it's at 10, and that's where I had 4 years of experience getting brands from 10 to 100. I didn't have the 1 to 10 experience, but I tried it, and it just didn't work out. But every failure is a lesson, so it was all good.
Of course, the main thing is you keep momentum going.
Yeah.
And you're always rolling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to go a little bit back. So obviously we've been following each other for quite some time, but your perspective is very unique. And I think like you've quite a unique perspective on many different things. But how did you kind of break that small town mentality that kind of let's just keep things small, let's not think global, let's not think on this huge scale that now you're operating on?
Yeah, so how did I break that? I suppose I do consider myself to have like, so I consider myself to be a little bit of a visionary, which is a recent discovery of mine.
What made you see that?
I don't know. I just kind of see, I can see kind of 20 years into the future, but I can also see 6 months into the future and what I would like to create and build. And that I kind of reverse engineer that into my daily tasks then. And so my second point is the visionary, but my second point is I'm a deep thinker. Like I just think, like I could sit in the car and I can sit in the car and just literally sit there for 15 minutes just in such deep thought that someone has to like, Adam, are you come back to earth here? Like, I'm such a deep thinker. So I kind of just started piecing it together. So I just started extracting information everywhere and figuring out what's possible, and then thinking a plan into place, I suppose, and how I can create. I'm here. I want to get to here. What's the vehicle to get there? So I just kind of I just thought it out, man.
You're actioning the advice though. You're not just fucking thinking about it and reading books, you know what I mean? And that's a big thing I've learned from you, is the fact that you consume a lot of content, but then you actually action it.
Yeah, very true.
How do you find that balance?
Because I have my daily structure. Like, I'm very goal orientated as well from Bob Proctor. I'm going to probably mention Bob Proctor numerous times out this podcast, but so I'm very goal orientated. So I do kind of reverse engineer the goal as well. Okay. So, for example, my goal might be here. I know I have to take in this information to implement it here. So, like, I've like 60 to 90 minutes in the morning. That's my time, and then after that, then it's action time. So, like, my essentially 9 to 5 hours are action hours. You know, that's my doing time. If I at night time or in the morning time or whatever the case may be, that's my thinking time or research time. So I never really think as in depth as I would in the morning or the night time during my action period, because, you know, you can read all the books, but if you don't want to implement things, nothing's going to happen. You know what I mean? But
it's good that you have that consistent flow of like new information coming in, because not a lot of people do. And I kind of wanted to ask you about that as well, because you're very religious in terms of, in the morning, you're reading your books, you're actioning it, and then in the evening, you're thinking about things, and then you do the work in the middle. So, like, how do you set your life up for that? Because, you know, a lot of people train in the morning, I train in the morning, and sometimes that might actually gas you for the day a small bit, you know?
Yeah.
But you've kind of like fine-tuned and found your rhythm, which has really worked for you, because you've all this fucking results and all these outcomes as a result.
Yeah. I suppose it's just being trial and error, really. I mean, like, just real trial and error, and it's real awareness. Like, it's real, again, the deep thinking. It's like, I don't think very few people actually think.
100%, man.
Like, what Bob Proctor says is, like, if people said what they were thinking, people, if you listen to what people were thinking, you would realize they're not. Like, very few people actually. So critical thinking is actually a skill, like a muscle that you have to work and develop. So just kind of structuring your day is like, it's the first thing. Nail down the habits. Like, if you create that habit, then the habit will create the result you want. So kind of basically building my day and my structure around what I want to achieve at that certain period of my life or the year, whatever.
Of course, yeah. And I think this goes back to actually ruthlessly doing it then, which is the biggest thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So when you kind of like decided that you were going to break out with your agency initially and kind of build up from zero, how did you go from 0 to 1? I know you had all those issues before you left your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And then you started implementing actually the work. But like, how does someone actually bring that forward? Like, what's your path to getting it kind of correct?
So I suppose it's a very, very tough time. It's a very, very tough thing. It's completely uncomfortable. It's difficult. You know, you have to battle a lot of stuff, a lot of doubts. You have to listen to people who are telling you that, you know, what the hell are you doing? But you have to be, like, what I say to people is, like, first of all, your commitment, and then your levels of seriousness. So some people are like, they think they're committed, but they're not really. So, like, they're not fully committed. Their levels of seriousness are down here when they need to be up here. Because if your levels of seriousness are up here, you will just power through it. So my levels of seriousness were completely like, I am fucking making this happen, because I have 45 points my leaving cert.
What?
Like, that's literally, like, you get that for writing your name on the paper. So, like,
why did that happen? Take me back there. What the fuck?
My leaving cert.
As in, like, why? Like, so how did that come about? Because you're obviously a super intelligent dude.
Yeah.
And like, you've obviously applied yourself.
Yeah.
And it's obviously an application of knowledge, and that's what this is. You know.
Yeah.
You could do a 9 to 5, and you could hate it, and then therefore will do nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas now you enjoy it, and you have that kind of fit. So, like, how the fuck does that happen in the first place?
So, school is a funny time for me. Like, I was only in the 6th year of school, which is for anyone outside of Ireland, that's like your A-levels, or I think
A-levels or final, or whatever it is.
Yeah, your final year. I was only in school 22 days of the final year. So I just never went. I just couldn't stick it. And I knew people and contractors who were like construction workers or builders or block layers that would be like, you know, Adam, are you around Wednesday and Thursday? So I'd be like, I'm like, yeah, because I could go to work for them and get €80 a day, or go to school. So every day I was like, fuck that, I'm going to make €80. And essentially I just hated school. So, and I just kept going to different jobs. Like I was working part-time for like a gardener literally during school. So I was just doing random like labouring jobs all the time. But I was making a lot of money, man. I was making a lot of money. Like I was driving to school. I done my leaving cert in 2014. I was driving to school in like a 2012, like a really nice car that I bought. Like I was driving, like, so whatever I was doing was producing an income for me. So it was starting to work. So basically in school, I was in there 22 days of sixth year, just never went, just couldn't stick it. But I suppose it's very hard to put something in without getting something out. And here's how Tai Lopez completely changed my life. One lesson he gave me is, two lessons, sorry. Okay, in school, they're like, you have to, if you don't read all these books, if you don't study, if you don't get really good points, if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful. Okay, Tai Lopez says, here's my Lamborghini, here's my mansion in Beverly Hills, here's my private jet, here's my lifestyle, here's my charity, here's my mother retired. I got all of this from these books. It completely switches the mindset. So it creates that desire, and now you're interested in actually reading the books rather than it being shoved at you with no outcome. It's like that fear. It's like, if you don't read a book, you're not going to get there. Whereas if someone actually creates the desire and the interest for you to go find out information and go study the greatest minds that have ever lived to get the outcome that Tai Lopez has, which is a natural emotional attraction that all of us want, then you will actually commit to it. So school was kind of the same for me. I used to go to a guidance counsellor in school, and he printed off for me every single college course in the whole country of Ireland, every single apprenticeship, every single degree, every single like technician role, every single like corporate growth, like big stack of pages. I used to come home at night time with a highlighter. Nah, don't want that. Maybe I'll be an engineer. A week would fly by, then like, I don't want to be an engineer.
Fuck that.
I have no interest in being an engineer. Like I could never attach myself to something. So then basically I couldn't commit to anything because I had no interest. So I just couldn't commit. So I just bounced around in careers. So because I had no interest, teachers would call my mother and say, like, get Adam into school, like, you know, he's behind. But I had the ability to catch up with everybody in a week because it was never an intellect, it was an interest thing. So because I couldn't commit to anything, I couldn't put my potential into it.
What made you interested in what Tai Lopez was selling though? Because
it's no ceiling to your career. You can put, and you
determine the outcome.
You've no idea what can happen. It's literally, and it is like right now, as we were just saying there before we started, I'm 26. Like I'm 4.5-5 years into like my own, I suppose, career now. At the end of my lifetime, I'm hoping to set my family and my future generations up for their future life, like kids, grandkids, etc. My life purpose and commitment is to put a vehicle for them to be in the next phase of their life. So I couldn't see that avenue from any other option that the guidance counselor was working with me with. So because maybe I saw that from what Tai Lopez was bringing me, I was like, okay, fuck, this could be it. And then we're goal-seeking organisms, man. Once you set a goal, then you become alive and you get obsessed. And
the opposite is also true, though. If you are in like that 9 to 5 and take it from someone who's literally done possibly as most someone can do at 25 years old. Yeah. Like I literally did as much as anyone could possibly do. Like I was earning 100K at 25 years old.
Yeah.
And I will still tell you that you are insanely capped. And that's what leads to this like fleeting, fucking unfulfilled lifestyle. Because when you're someone that's kind of geared like us, and of course you're miles and miles and miles ahead of me, but it's the same mechanics under the surface.
Yeah.
And when you have that restriction on you, it's like a cage animal.
Yeah.
That's what gave me the most frustration in that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound like disgruntled, but it's definitely just what after. And we discussed this previously, you know, in terms of like, when you know that there's this cap, why the fuck would I work harder?
Exactly.
Because even after, and actually I'll tell you even a funnier story. I don't give a shit saying this stuff. I worked for a management consulting firm in Dublin called Accenture, right? And in my first year, I remember I did a load of shit. And because of COVID happening, I actually took over a project. So I was running this project, and it was like a $1 million or $2 million project, and I was literally doing it myself, doing all the resourcing, all the planning. I was 22, 23 years old. And at the end of it, I got promoted. And when I got promoted, I still got promoted to the same amount that everybody else made. And I said, oh, but could I not have just skipped this fucking level? Literally, it's called level, it's game. And gone to a different level. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
So input does not equal different output. And that's when the whole system breaks down. So for you, you're not really interested in fucking social media marketing or digital marketing or whatever. It's more of, this is the vehicle. And that's why I love when you use that word vehicle, because it doesn't really matter what the thing is. It's the fact that you attach it. Now, question for you off this is, you had no skill in that initially. So how the fuck do you fine tune that skill to be able to drive something forward like that?
So I suppose that's the first step, is getting the skill. You have to get the skill. But like from the previous question, you go to college to get a skill and you sell your skill to your employer. Whereas you can, that training is not on your clock.
Yeah.
Whereas the training of personal skill sets is on your clock. Because you can spend like anyone right now can spend the next 6 weeks every single night learning something. And you will be fucking phenomenal at it in 6 weeks if you
100%.
commit to it. If you don't watch movies, if you don't do whatever the fuck you do at nighttime, you commit. So for me, it was the Tai Lopez course. I bought Tai Lopez social media marketing agency course, and that's a 4-month course. I'd done it twice in like 2 months. So I was non-stop. I was like locked away every single night on a broken computer. How does this work? Rewinding the video, watching it again. How did he create this Instagram, Facebook ad? How did he, write the headline? How did he design this? I just watch the video back, watch it again, write everything down, rewind, watch it again. Study the mindset program, study the business program. How the fuck do you send an invoice? I didn't have a clue to do that. I used to have to watch lessons. I used to have to watch YouTube videos. How do you send an invoice? What is an invoice? Like, how do I put tax and VAT on an invoice? Like, I didn't have a clue.
You know what's the best thing about that is when you do it, you're like, it's done. I don't need to relearn it.
Exactly.
That's the best feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a phenomenal thing. So if it's on your clock, you can commit to it and you can spend the next 6 weeks nailing a skill, because when you nail a skill, that skill is going to benefit your life so massively that it's worth we're trading time here. Like, our life is just time. No one knows how much time we have in life. Our life is just simply time. So what is Bob Proctor, for the second time, his term of happiness and success is the transaction for time, for something worthwhile of your time. So like actualizing what your time is gone into. Whereas if you're putting your time into something you don't like or you don't love, you're going to be unhappy. But if you're actually selling your time and your mental energy every single day for something that you really, really desire, you're happy.
100%.
You're happy then. So
100%.
It's like your time is all we have. Like, people need to realize that time is all we have. So if you're selling your time for something you don't like, of course you're going to be unhappy. It's like giving away your last money in your bank account for something that you don't want. Time is much more valuable than money. So having the time into something that you want will make you push to achieve the skill set at an expert level much quicker.
I want to ask you about influences.
Yeah.
So a lot of your mentors, I guess, were some of those bigger guys. So like, can you talk to me about that? Because those guys were millions of steps ahead of you. And there's this kind of like, trend, I guess, on Twitter, on fucking all different platforms, like, oh, you don't want to be like the top of this certain category. You only want to be looking at people a couple of steps ahead of you, which is a good point. It's a very valid point.
Yeah.
But for you had those like mega fucking names.
Yeah.
how beneficial do you think that is versus just people that are a couple of rungs ahead of you?
Massive, huge, because again, I did have kind of some, like, I suppose, semi mentors back in Cork that were like, you know, just in all different corporate careers, right? And what they were telling me was very, very different to what the Grant Cardones, the Tai Lopez, the
American mindset
were telling me. Yeah.
It is, man.
It's the thinking big.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to make that quantum leap, trying to multiply yourself. There's a book called U Squared, for that fantastic book. It's about multiplying your own effectiveness to quantum leap ahead. Not really just kind of going semi sideways. Eventually, you know, you don't want to get there you don't want to get there in 30, 40 years. You want to get there now. So it's like going that bigger kind of leap and bound, kind of thinking big, I suppose. So I was kind of I just got so obsessed with like Grant Cardone mentor interviews and like his kind of mentorship tips that I just watched interviews all the time. I just kept soaking in, and I still do, to be fair. I'm always listening to something, like, so eventually when I just kept taking, I kind of just kept downloading all their thoughts into my own brain, and then they kind of just became part of my day-to-day
100%
operations.
It's subconscious then. You're just fucking, you're moving with it.
Exactly.
I like the fact that sometimes it's subconscious, but sometimes it's actually conscious, that it actually kicks in hard.
Yeah.
And one of my good mates who I just released a podcast with called Ned Phillips, so CEO of a $50 million company. He's a fucking genius guy. And he says, so he's an ultramarathon runner.
Yeah.
And one of his mentors has said something that said that it's acceptable to say nothing if you're suffering.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable to whine, but it's admirable to revel in the pain. Okay. And I fucking always remember that when things get difficult. So when things are really difficult, if you take it on and really run with it, and you're like, this is shit, I'm going to keep on working on it. And you just put your head down, you get it done. Now, I'm not saying like not fucking discussing like how it feels or whatever, but just understanding that this is when everyone's given up, and this is the more difficult point, and that comes to my actual conscious whenever I'm training, whenever I'm working on something, whenever if I'm doing difficult podcasts and preparing for difficult podcasts, it's like this is the breaking point where everyone else is giving in.
I like that. That's very, very good. I'm halfway through a book called Relentless as well by Tim Grover, and very, very similar thing. It's like he positions people as closers and cleaners, and the cleaner is the person who goes past from good to great. So it's like when it gets tough, now you're starting. That's when you're starting. So quite similar to that point.
I want to talk about some of the challenges you had with the agency in the beginning. So of course, like where you are now is fucking, you know, it looks great, whatever, but what were some of those challenges when you're getting your first client? Like how would you help people position themselves to start tailoring up the first couple of clients, the first couple of thousand in revenue?
So again, I didn't even know kind of all this type of stuff back then. Like I didn't know like starting a business was such a daunting term to me back then, because no one in my family or any of my network ever had a business before. So I was like, it's just a very, very daunting term. So I kind of just removed that. And again, going back to the one thing that book was a massive help for me. I was like, okay, what can I do right now? Like, what can I do right now? And there's a thing, it's like in 5 years, in 20 years, in 5 years, in 6 months, in one month, and today. It's like you create a domino effect. So I was like, okay, what is the one thing I can do? Okay, what's something that most businesses need? Okay, most businesses in the local area need new customers coming in. How do they do that? Okay, if we can advertise in a 20-kilometer radius, giving somebody a really good offer, and when they come into the store, into the clinic, into the shop, give them something that will have them coming back again. And I was like, okay, that's really, really good. So I wrote out like, okay, and my second client was an optician. So I was like, okay, an optician. Sorry, my third client was an optician. My second was like a bar restaurant. So I was like,
your first was a barber.
First was a barber, yeah. So for example, for the three of them, I done the very basic maths. I was like, okay, for example, if you're an optician, if you buy glasses, if you come in for a checkup and you get contact lenses, that's a monthly subscription. If you get glasses, it's going to cost hundreds, whatever the case may be. Okay, so if I can get someone in their door for like €15 and they end up selling €300, that's a 20 times return. And I was like, okay, I've done the maths and I wrote this out loads of times on paper, because my biggest fear at the time, I suppose, was looking like an idiot, for people to be saying, your man, you know, Adam used to, remember back in the day when Adam thought he could start a business? Yeah. That was my fear. That was something that I was like.
One thing though on that is the fact that when people say shit like that, even if it went tits up, right, you're still a million miles ahead, because you went and did the thing. You know what I mean? Like, if you're
right now, I wouldn't give a shit. I wouldn't care now.
Of course, but even at that point, and I know you're subject to these like social like dynamics when you're younger or whatever. You know, at this point, I literally could not give a shit about about like anything, like literally. But of course, like in the earlier stages, like you're very like susceptible to what happens in the space. You know?
So like it would be much better to have tried and failed, and failure is only a temporary stop anyway, rather than never trying at all. So like if you're trying, respect to you, fucking hell, like hats off to anybody who's in that phase right now of starting from scratch. Like, I know what it feels. I bought a broken laptop from a Polish guy who didn't speak any English in a warehouse in Cork that I found on Dundee for €200.
It's such a Cork story.
Yeah, and I came home and the thing took like, it sounded like a hairdryer. It took like 15 minutes to come on. So I know, just me and that laptop and Wi-Fi in my room, like I know I'm starting from scratch. I know how tough that is, and it's like, it's just mentally terrifying. You're like, what the hell am I doing? Is this actually going to work? It's just constant doubt. So if you're in that phase, keep going. If you are someone who is, you know, basically trying to make it happen right now, and you're in that phase, just keep going, keep getting better and better and better. And so that when I had mathematically mapped it all out for the client, step one. Step two is building the confidence in myself that I know I can actually get this result that I've mathematically mapped out. So when I had that mapped out, and now I was so confident in delivering the service, all I needed was someone to speak to. So when I could start to speak to someone, I was like, look, here's the maths. I was like, here's the maths. Does this all mathematically add up? They say yes. Okay, here's what I can do. Here's the strategy to achieve this mathematical business growth, which is a result. So I'm the person to do it. For me to bridge this gap for you, I think my first client was like $400. So I was like, it's going to cost $400. She was like, okay, it sounds quite good. And I was like, what? I was like, what do I do from here? So I had to go home, figure out to send an invoice. I had to go home and figure out all these things. So for the first client, I would mathematically make sure it all added up. Or if it's not like a revenue growth service that you're offering, if it's a video, or if it's organic, or whatever the case may be, is having this solution to whatever you're doing. If is this solution going to be worth it for you? How can this, whatever you're trying to deliver, be worth it to who you're trying to deliver it to? So I just really logically toned it all back down and made it super simple for me, which made it super simple for the client. And then I got one, and then I just started thinking of creative ways to speak to restaurant owners, business owners, again, found the optician, things like that. So I just basically said to everybody in my network, if you say this to your employer, your manager, your boss, I'll give you 50% of the first month's fee. So they were like, fuck, that's amazing. How much do you charge? Okay, the first one's 400. No, the next one's 800. So like, if someone connected me with their employer, I went down, had a meeting, charged them €800. The invoice comes in, I send them $400 straight away. They made €400 for making the introduction. So just out of the box, making it happen. And this is why your back's against the wall, because I was at home making sure this has to happen. I had no other option. You know,
man, I love that. When you are gaining that confidence, how do you realize that, like, okay, there's longevity in this?
Because sort of researching the market, I was like, okay, realistically, we're advertising on, like, advertising, marketing budgets for companies is going nowhere. Companies are always going to spend to increase their business growth. Okay, that's going nowhere. Okay, Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, they're going nowhere.
They're just the fucking platforms. They're irrelevant.
They're not going away. So connecting those dots. Okay, advertising, businesses are going to need to advertise to continuously grow. These platforms are going to constantly evolve and adapt. So I know that there's going to be an avenue for both to keep going. So I could just see that in the future. I was like, I could just see this is where it's going. I mean, like at the time, Gymshark just blew up. Like Gymshark blew up. Like Gymshark was massive. And when I rewatched the Gymshark journey from say 2013 to like 2018, I was like, it's all online. Everything here is online. They don't have a store. So I'm like, is this going to be the new thing? And that the e-commerce world then took off in COVID and stuff like that. So I could kind of, from so much research and putting so much in, downloading all this information, I could kind of make a strategic estimate of what I thought was going to continuously happen.
You know what's interesting with you is the fact that you built all of this without much of like a social media presence.
No, I had 800 followers on Instagram, and it was just my friends.
And they were irrelevant, you know what I mean? That didn't contribute towards which is quite interesting because like most people now, I don't know, is it like 2023 and onwards that like they'll check out whether it's your LinkedIn or your Twitter or your company page or whatever. But you did all this legwork with literally is nothing in the back end. There was no aura around you, so you had no skill, which you obviously learned, and then you had no presence. And you've obviously been doubling down on that recently. How do you acquire those clients without your name being out there? That's a big struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's very, very tough. So I suppose like I think I'm quite good at like maneuver myself into the right circles. So for example, my father was speaking to his like health insurance guy. He drove a Mercedes. He wore a Rolex. I was like, okay, I need to speak with this guy.
Get rich by making rich people richer.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, this guy, he knows something. I rang my dad. How can I speak with him? Rang your man. He was like, oh, I'd love to speak with you. Yeah. What do you do? And he was like, oh, my best buddy owns a recruitment agency. He'd love constant leads coming into the business. He doesn't do any advertising because he taught me recently. I'll give him a call there and see if you can speak with him. That was my fourth client, €1,500. €1,500 for a client back in my fourth client. I thought I made it, right? So I maneuvered myself into that circle by having the perception, okay, this guy drives a, whatever, was it 2019, maybe 2018? He had a 2018 Mercedes S-Class, whatever the best one is anyway, I can't remember. He had a brand new Mercedes. He had a watch. He wore suits. I knew he was on holidays 2 or 3 times a year. I knew he had a massive house in the countryside in Ireland because he rented it to my father a couple of years back where we went down and stayed there. So I was like, okay, this guy's doing something. I need to speak with him. Got his number, rang him. And then he introduced me. He was like, oh, yeah, that might work. My friend has a recruitment agency. My other friend owns a coffee distribution business. And I just started connecting with all. So he started passing me on numbers. And then he was like, geez, this young fella here is great. He's ringing all his friends. This young fella is fantastic. He's after getting you. So they're a recruitment agency for like Eli Lilly and stuff like that. Massive. So like if they get someone a 24-month contract, their commission there is like 18 grand. I think it's like 10% of the annual salary or something like that. So it's like €18,000. So I was getting him leads, people looking for jobs for 50 quid. And he was selling them basically an $18,000 product. So the recruitment agency owner was ringing that guy and telling him, this young fella's fucking brilliant. So then that guy was ringing more of his friends saying, Jesus, I have a young fella here. He's brilliant. He's doing something online. I don't know what he's doing, but it's working and it's bringing more business in here and everyone's happy. Do you want to chat with him?
100%.
So
it's creating your own luck, man. You're getting into those environments and you're creating your own luck. I think it's quite interesting though because you stayed local for quite some time, which I'm quite like surprised about in some regards because like most people would look at an American market or UK. Like all of my clients are US, bar a couple, but yeah, mainly US. So that's quite interesting how you had such dominance in and not necessarily a small market, but like a local market. Yeah, and then you were able to scale out of there.
Yeah, I suppose I didn't even know, man. I didn't even know. I was just trying to get that 1%. I was just looking for the compound effect. Like I was just trying to get better. So that kind of just happened. I didn't ever actually plan that.
What about your fulfillment? So when you're constantly like leveraging up and trying to get better, and this is a big thing I want to get into as well, is like, how do you ensure that you're always hitting your targets, always having a nice smooth back end? Like how does that work when you're at the early stages?
Yeah, so that's a daunting task as well. So again, when I got the first clients, again for weeks I was like watching the Tai Lopez videos, and as I said, he was literally going through an exact tutorial how to set up an ad on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah.
And I was like watching it, go back to the start, watching it again before I go to bed, watch it 2 more times. So I was ready to create this Facebook ad in my sleep, like with a blindfold on. I was ready to do it. So when an actual say that his training was very generic, it wasn't for any specific thing. So when the optician and the barbershop and that stuff came, I was up at 6 a.m. I was down in a Starbucks, and I was on a laptop, and I was watching a video on exactly how to do that for a barbershop, for an optician, for something else. And basically I was able to bring what Tai Lopez was teaching plus my own research into the fulfillment for the client, and basically just, I suppose, did loads, figured out what worked and what didn't, and just kind of made it happen from there.
What about the pricing? So we were chatting beforehand about Zarek, who I was going to podcast with him recently.
Yeah.
And a big thing that he's pushing is obviously like rev share. But of course, you're at the early stages. You're trying to get your pricing right. Like, how did you scale your pricing?
That kind of just comes, and like every time, I suppose over the years, it's just been every time there's a new client, it's €500 there, like every time. So, but that comes with like expertise. Like I'm like, okay, what we're doing is valuable enough for we deserve to charge this, and we should be charging this, because if I don't charge this, I'm not going to have a player talent in my company, so I have to charge this. So I think with the pricing, it was like, okay, we made one of our first ever e-commerce clients, we made them like an extra €80,000 in a month. And I was like, okay, if I'm making them €80,000, in my head, I was like, okay, let's say they have a 40% margin. That's X amount. And then I'm saying, I can charge them this, including all the ad spend, VAT, fulfillment, all the other expenses. They're still making massive profit here. So I kind of just basically mathematically stripped that back. What's the service worth? What's the value? Here's the value. And then again, bigger clients, bigger spends, bigger results in return for them. Again, adding on another service, and just basically been able to increase the fee from there. We do have rev share clients right now. We do have, big retainer clients that are just flat fee retainer. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of just came as the clients got bigger, the budgets got bigger, things like that. We just kind of,
you feel it out. Yeah. As you go, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I suppose I had kind of a guidance from Tai Lopez from day one. He's like, get to a place where you're charging clients €5,000 per month minimum. And like he was like, you can eventually work with massive clients that you charge more, like that you charge rev shares in $10,000 to $15,000 per month. So it's kind of just having that borderline guidance, and then just kind of implementing it then step by step.
Yeah. So as I was discussing, like, you didn't have that audience. Yeah. So how were you able to kind of bring the outcomes you were bringing for other people to like new clients? Like, what is it? How were you able to kind of build up those like, testimonials, case studies, so that you can go for the 15, 20K big day clients? How does that come about?
Big day clients. I suppose I don't know, man, to be honest. I just kind of, I suppose I kind of got one client that was, I suppose COVID started coming in. So it probably, my first e-commerce client was probably a good couple of months before COVID came. And I just got connected to that person from another person who I was speaking with.
That was not long ago, man.
No.
Hell.
Yeah. And he was kind of like, are you doing any, like, what's your structure with advertising on Facebook, Instagram, Google, etc. for your brand? And he was like, oh, the girls in the office just might, spend €20 and they were just like boosting the post. I was like, no. I was like, you can do so much more here. And he was like, oh, really? He was like, someone told me about that I should be doing this. I'm actually quite interested. I was like, yeah, let's have a meeting next week. And then we chatted over. I was like, look, a very, very small fee, pay me €1,000 per month for now. And let's try it for a month. And he was like, okay. And then we made him 80 grand. So that was a long-term client then back then.
And you haven't had any clients really churning out of that process then as a result,
Yeah, exactly. So like, if you're actually, it's very, very simple. Like it's very, very simple. We'll make you multiples back of what you pay us. Like it's just that simple. There's no, like, that's all of our focus. Like on the top of for the agency, on the top of the website says revenue driven results. Like it's just increasing the revenue for an e-com brand. We've all our own strategies to do that across the board, but it's very, very black and white. The revenue is growing. Yes. Thumbs up. It's just
simple as that.
It's just that simple. Like if people are looking for all the other metrics and they're looking to grow followers, or they're saying, you know, our cost per click or average order value, stuff like that, we work on all that, but the goal is to get the revenue up. And if we do that, that's what we do. If we don't, we'll tell you before you tell us, and we just grow your revenue, man. Like it's just that simple.
How have you seen your revenue grow over the years? What was the kind of trajectory? How did it grow?
I suppose I think actually it was it was before I just moved into the Elysian in Cork, and that was like that was my dream board. Like the Elysian in Cork, like the biggest building in Ireland. That was my dream apartment. And I suppose one day I actually was I was working for ages, and I just checked my Stripe, and there was 11K in 30 days. So I was at like 10K a month. 10K a month was my goal for so long, and I hit it without even realizing. Back in late 2019, started 2020. So that was kind of I just kind of hit that. Then I always say 10, 25, 50, 100. That's kind of that's what I always recommend people. Okay, where are you at right now? Get to 25 or get to 50 or get to 100. Like 10, 25, 50, 100. That's what I always tell people. So I suppose just kind of got through all those milestones basically, and just kind of again, I learned a valuable lesson about like clusters and pods within your business, and this is actually probably something that would be valuable for you as well. And actually, Iman Gadzhi told me this. It's having a pod. So, for example, what needs to be in that pod that can look after 8, 10, or 12 clients. So each pod then could be worth, if you've 10 clients in there, your clients pay €3,000. That's €30,000, whatever the case may be, and you build your team inside that pod. So then when that pod is filled, you start the second pod. So you start hiring the second team that's already in here. So whether that's copywriter number 2, account manager number 2, media buyer number 2, and then you start getting your next 30K of revenue into that pod, and then a third pod. So you build pods or build clusters, whatever you want to call them. So that kind of really helped me get to that 10, 25, 50, 100 milestones is in regards to the pods.
What type of margins are you doing?
So for me, it's hard to say because there's so many different things, right? Yeah. There's so many different things. So for example, this month, my brand Tai, which is top of your game men's sportswear, we've had to put in a massive order for stock. So that comes out of, say, different accounts. So for example, my agency, which is basically the thing that funded everything, a big chunk of that. So I'd have to funnel, say, a big chunk of last month's revenue over to Tai to buy the stock. And then another brand might need stock too. So it's like we don't actually have funding partners for different brands. So I kind of fund a lot of it. So it's hard. It varies different months, but I do know that if it ever goes below 50%, I'll jump in and figure something out there, and something is wrong. But it can be below 50% if I'm investing. Like I invest heavily. Like I invested €500,000, I'd say, in the past 18 months. So like I'm always investing in stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to say, if that makes sense.
Walk me through the brand process. So you were buying up brands. I'm correct in saying that. How the fuck how do you do that? That seems like a private equity scenario where you need to look at like projections and
so
everything.
Private equity is a term that I've seen bouncing around the past 10 months. I never knew what it was before, and it's kind of like the back when I was trying to get my first clients. That term freelancer, I'd never heard of that, but essentially I was a freelancer back then.
Okay.
So now that I'm investing in brands and buying the brands, I suppose that is technically, I don't know, is that technically private equity?
Well, valuations,
yeah. So effectively, like it just kind of happened. As I said, I was stacking my money for a long time. Like always be very, very financially like diligent. Like I would never spend more than I basically could afford. Like I would always be very, very kind of frugal. Like my parents would say we'd give Adam €5 to go get his lunch, and he'd come back with his lunch and €20. So I'd cut someone's grass on the way to the shop, or I'd do something on the way.
Okay.
I would.
That's fucking sick, man.
You know, like one of the neighbors would say, Adam, when you go down to the shop, get me milk, bread, etc., and here's a €5 yourself. So I would do all that type of stuff as a kid. So I'd be very, very frugal with like financially frugal. So I don't know if frugal the right word. Maybe like
more just intelligent, just kind of more.
Yeah, more like just aware. Like
you had a good awareness.
Yeah, like people would say, my family would have said, like, Adam's definitely going to be an accountant.
You valued $1 or €1 equivalent. You were able to do that, whereas because you probably didn't have a lot of it, same as me.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean. My family didn't have much money, and that's the reason why.
Yeah.
I'm very much driven towards this, and also I'm very interested in the accumulation and distribution of wealth, you know?
Yeah. So that probably goes back to the deep thinking thing. Mm-hmm. I was like always deep thinking, okay, I'm going to need this money in the future. Like, and because I had a goal, and because I flopped 2 clothing brands, I was like, I'm still not giving up on that idea. Now I have Tai, Top of Your Game, which is my clothing brand. But I bought that. I didn't start it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to need this money. An opportunity is going to come where I need this money, right?
Yeah.
So I just kind of kept waiting for an opportunity, and then I was supposed to work with this client, and he was like, I'm not sure what to do. I kind of have another idea. I might need a career change, whatever. So we just sparked the conversation and jumped on a call. I got my CFO on a call, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. It's a good valuation. The money is there. Mm-hmm. You can do it. So
how do you integrate with someone like that? Like, how do you take over that company?
Very hard.
Why is it so difficult?
Paperwork. Yeah. Obviously this was a UK company. I'm in Ireland. It's a massive kind of change because the company was due VAT returns, and we had to get like different. So we were bringing it over to say the warehouse that I partner with in North of Ireland. So Isaac had to change all that contractual agreements. Mm-hmm. That had to change with all DPD and DHL returns. Like, it was a massive thing.
All the ugly shit that are just so bad.
I underestimated it so much. But it was all a learning curve. It's all a learning curve.
That's why software is just so clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even acquisitions of software, which are bad enough as it is, like of a tech company, like the biggest issue you have is the employees. Like, what do you do with them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the culture fit, all that kind of shit. But it's not like the actual underlying fucking infantry, like the physical asset, you know?
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a massive headache.
So why did you do it?
Why?
Yeah.
I just felt that it was the next thing, man. I just felt it was the next thing. It was like something that I had envisioned. It's something that my gut, my intuition told me it was right to do. I don't know. Like, yeah, people say to me, "Oh, you should have kept scaling the agency." I'm like, yeah, that's for you. My goal was not an exit. My goal is not like, I don't have a specific like get ahead in business goal.
Yeah,
I have a goal of like creating interests and building something that I am investing. I have a vision for, rather than just having a specific kind of a continuation of the next thing, you know. Mm-hmm. Not that I was getting bored or anything, but it was like, I can see something bigger here, and this is the vision that I have, rather than this vision. So it just kind of felt right, felt like the next progressive thing. And
what are you doing in that brand now? Like, how are you building it?
So effectively, the brands are, again, designing new products. So obviously I have a team for all this. Like, I don't actually do the day-to-day management of the brand. I couldn't, right? It's not enough hours in the day. But like, the brands have teams, the brands have, you know, we have a designer, we have content creators, we have a network of like UGC creators, we have a Shopify partner. Like, there's a lot, the brands are being worked on, I suppose, through a team as a whole. Mm-hmm. So there's a manager in each brand. I have a partner in each brand. And it's just the brands are just kind of, again, building products, different marketing strategies. There's a shoot for one of my brands today. So they're just growing, just trying to grow the brands.
Yeah,
which is hard, very, very hard, but it's enjoyable.
You have the team behind you though.
Yeah.
So you're not doing the 0 to 1 stage that you struggle on.
No. Yeah. That's the stage that I don't know.
You can just integrate, scale the shit out of it from here.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about that vision board. I think that's very, very interesting. Or I never really heard about it. Where did you learn that from?
The vision board. I learned that it came from Bob Proctor. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was so interesting, man. I was checking in some of your other work. I thought that was incredible. Why has that been helpful for you? Like mapping out, are they numeric goals or are they more like abstract as well, where they're not actually like tied into a specific metric?
Yeah. So every person should have two goals, a professional and a personal goal. So your goal needs to be the Northern Star, and all of your other goals fall into place when you hit that goal. So, for example, if your goal is to buy a new house, if your goal is if your goal, and there's different types of goals which I'll get into after, but if your goal is to buy a new house, okay, that might fall into place if you double the revenue in your company. You can buy a house then. Whereas if your goal is to just buy a house, your mind be focused on buying the house, but you might not build your company. So you could potentially go semi-sideways for a period of time. So there's three types of goals. Goal A is something that you've already done. So for example, if your goal was to move to a new country, you're living in a new country right now, you've already done that. You don't need to grow as a human, as a person to get there. Goal type B is something that if this, but that, if where, there, and everywhere, if I can connect all these dots, this can happen. And goal C is your C goal, which is your fantasy. It's like you've no idea you've removed the how. You don't need to know how it's going to happen. You just need to know this is the vision board. Set your subconscious mind on the target and then start thinking day to day. So when you wake up in the morning, look at your vision board. Throughout the day, then thoughts will come to you and say, you know what, if I actually did this, or if I actually invested over here, or if I actually did this, that could potentially be the next phase to my C goal. Because when you set a goal so big that you've no idea how to achieve, then you'll start to get there. So for example, right now, if my goal is to make another 20,000 euro per month in revenue, I know I'll sign 4 clients, boom, I'm there. Whereas if my goal is to sign is to, get to €1 million per month, I've no idea how to get there. I have to scale this. I have to build out a new team. Who do I have to hire? Do I have to work with it? Like all these thoughts start to come together, and that's how you start thinking bigger. So remove the how. And then when you wake up in the morning on your vision board, have goals on there that are so big that basically when you look at them, you're like, you don't know how to get there, but throughout the day, you'll start to think of ideas and different thought patterns to move towards. And then you'll grow as a human, as a person, you'll grow so that you know how to see the avenue to get there. So that's kind of So the C would be something that's more like longer term. So like $1 million per month, for instance. Of course, if you do $1 million per month, there's 100K, there's 500K, whatever. But having that there is instrumental in the big thinking versus just having a fucking 25K a month goal. And what I think the problem with that as well sometimes is if you just set like a smaller numeric goal, when you're 80% there or 70% there, you hit the foot off the gas. Yeah, and that's why you don't go. That's why I see people don't get ahead. I see someone who has an agency, they're doing 15,000 a month. They're like, I want to get to 25. I'm like, that's not that hard. I mean, like time is going to get you there anyway. Just keep doing what you're doing for another. You're going to get there with time. You're like, if you're going kind of sideways there. You're not growing as a person there. So the goal is to grow, not to get. So you get by growing. If you just keep growing. So if someone's at 15,000 per month, and I'm like, go to 75. I'm like, set 75 as the target. And they're like, their thinking is different, their structure is different. They're like, okay, we actually need to have 10 sales calls every week instead of 5 sales calls every week. And actually, you know what, hire that new designer, hire that new person, hire this person, get this new software. And they start doing things at a much faster rate instead of saying, no, don't hire that person. We only need one. We don't need any new staff. We don't need a software. You know, and they'll eventually 6 months will fly by. They'll get from 15 to 25. Yeah, I hit the goal, yes, but you didn't grow. You know, and the goal is to grow, not to get. So if your goal is to get, a good goal is to actually get a yacht, because if you want to get a yacht, you have to grow into a person who knows how to acquire a yacht. The yacht doesn't actually matter. It's you becoming the person who is capable of acquiring the yacht.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's kind of a goal setting lesson.
Man, that's unbelievable, because I just don't think anyone's thinking like that. You know what I mean?
No one thinks about
it like that, because everyone's like, oh, goals, whatever, but it's all bollocks though, you know what I mean, to some degree, you know?
Yeah.
But the way you're framing it makes it unbelievable, but also believable at that point. And it can be very personal. You can keep it within yourself, and you post on fucking Twitter, like.
Yeah. You don't post on Twitter, but yeah, I mean, like it does sound. I think a lot of people need to do work in removing the logical part of the brain. That needs to go. Get it out of there.
How?
By having belief in the mentors that you're speaking to, and having reading autobiographies. So if you read autobiographies, you will understand Michael Jordan done some illogical shit over the years in order to become Michael Jordan. So did any athlete. So did Cristiano Ronaldo, who moved away from his parents at 11 years of age. That's an illogical thing to do. But looking back and seeing that, it's like, okay, that was the step that people need. So people need to remove the logical step and understand that people who are doing big things, they don't do logical things. That is basically what society tells them to do. They just don't. So if you can remove the logical part of your brain and have faith and belief in someone who's credible in telling you what to do, then you can do it. So for example, Tai Lopez, he's credible. He's done it. He's done everything that I want to do. When he was telling me something, if he told me stand on the side of the road with one hand on my head and a hop on one leg, I would have done it all day. I just did not question it. So I just done what he done. I done what he said.
And that's why it clicked though, because you had that bigger vision. And man, I recorded 147 podcasts, and a lot of people aren't thinking like that. Tell you that much. And a lot of guys who are VC backed, big companies, the VCs telling them, oh yeah, you need a high growth startup, and then they're thinking, then it happens, but they're not thinking in that mindset. So you talk about the logical brain and kind of pretty much brainwashing yourself into that process. How do you kind of do that process without, the interference of other people around you? So if it's a small town, if it's in Ireland or whatever, or friends, family, a partner holding you back. Because you're single, if I'm correct. Yeah. And you're in Dubai, you're in your room, you're fucking clean out room with nothing in it. So this can happen more organically for you than someone else.
Yeah, but I had to put myself in that.
Yeah, of course.
I had to so back in Cork, I had to cut myself off from everybody, unfortunately. And these are my best friends for life, and this was the hardest part of it all.
That's why I didn't know who you were until you were in Marbella.
Yeah. Because
I didn't know, and you're younger than me.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of you, seen of you, because I didn't know of you at all.
Yeah, so I had to cut everyone off, man. And I mean, childhood friends, people who I'd been on holidays with, I would walk into their house without a key, that level of friendship, because every weekend they wanted to go out and party and spend loads of money and be hungover on Sunday and Monday. I was like, I can't do that right now. I just can't do that. I have to switch something around here. I have to make a change for myself. So I had to cut off everybody. That was very, very tough. Very, very tough. Get a lot of backlash, a lot of who does he think he is type thing. So that was very hard. And you have to kind of go through a lonely phase. But I actually only read 2 or 3 days ago, God will put you by yourself so that he can get you on the right path. It's a lesson from the Bible. God will, if you need to change, or you need to get a lesson, or if you need to get a certain message or be taken away from an environment, God will make you alone first, always. And then he will put you back into a better, more fitting environment. So yeah, just kind of have to go through that lonely phase.
Have you always been religious?
Yeah, very religious. I've Holy Mary tattooed all down the left hand side of my body. So both my grandmothers were very religious. My grandmother on my father's side lived in my father's house for the last 10 years of her life. So like every day was like, it was religious. Like, so she went to mass, like church, twice a day. It was all lessons of God. It was very much like, Adam, did you pray today? And I'd say no. She's like, if you don't start praying, there's going to be a black mark on your soul. And I'd be saying, oh, I know, I'm going to pray. Did you go to confession? Like, make sure you're praying. Like, be on the right side of God. Like be on the right side of faith. Be on the right side of religion, of higher power. Like, don't be a degenerate living outside of what God wants you to live like. So yeah, as my grandmother kind of, I suppose, brought that for me in life. And like, she'd have like rosary beads that I have with me right now. Like in my suitcase, whenever I travel, I have like holy water and a little mini Bible that all came from my grandmother. So yeah, I was the favorite, so I got to represent.
It's interesting though, because not many young men from Ireland have kept up like any faith at all.
Yeah, I don't know a happy atheist, man.
Yeah,
I don't know a happy atheist. They don't exist.
Why do you think it's kind of? Well, do you think it's kind of phasing out in Ireland?
Yeah, of course it is, man. Yeah, it's horrible. Like, it's horrible to see from someone who has their faith. Like, it's horrible to see. It's like you need to have, like, how can you behave as a good person when you don't think anyone's watching, when you don't think there's no karma coming for you, when you don't think that when it all comes to an end, when you don't think that you're going somewhere after this life, when you don't think your spirit's going to transition into somewhere, when you don't even know you're a spirit. Again, people don't even know who they are. That's the problem. People don't, like, you say to people, oh, I'm Adam, I'm Adam in a body. No, Adam is my name and this is my body. If it's my arm, my leg, my body, like Bob Proctor teaches, who am I? Who is my? And like, that's your spirit. That's your spiritual being. We're in a physical body. That's going to eventually deteriorate. But your spirit, you can't destroy spirit. Like, spirit is energy. So that will transition somewhere. And if I didn't know all that, I probably would be I probably would have less belief, which means I'd probably be less looking after my actions, I suppose, because if I felt like no one was watching me, or I'd nowhere to go after my life on earth, I just wouldn't really care what I did. Whereas when I educated myself and I know there is a higher power, there is, from what the physical eye can see, there is a lot more to you, to me, to everybody, then I can behave as a good person, have karma on my side, and I know I'm going to transition into going somewhere after this. How
do you keep up like your faith now in Dubai?
So I just make sure I pray all the time. Don't be godless. Be like, I live my life basically that I know I'm being watched by God. I don't do people wrong. I don't do fucking bad stuff. Like, I just make sure that I'm living life by God, and I know that I'm just not going to block any of my blessings. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was also times where I was going to bed at night and I was praying, like, God, if you please make this work for me, I'll make it work for everyone else I speak to. And like, that's the promise I'm going to keep. So like, yeah, just pray, just be on the right side of God, like, just be a good person, basically.
100%. Yeah, it's very interesting to observe though, like the view on like religion, especially in Ireland, like Christianity, is the fact that like it's changed so much, and then in other cultures, obviously, like it's gained more like media popularity.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a good thing in many regards, because people are becoming more connected with it. But it's just one thing where in Ireland it seems like it's going the opposite direction continuously.
Yeah, it's sad, man. Yeah.
And my mom is very religious, like, and she's always like keeping up that faith. And I think something maybe from her family and whatnot, But it's only when I kind of dug deep in your work, I was like, you're the only person that's actually continuing that and you're vocalizing your opinion on it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you're able to, you stand over what you believe in,
Yeah.
That's all that matters, man.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I'll be the one rewarded.
Yeah.
That, you know, God's favorite.
100%, man. So you talked about helping other people.
Yeah.
You recently started your community page.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that process?
Really good, man. Really good. I think we had like 500 or 600 members in the first like 36 hours.
Fucking
and
hell.
people are in there engaging like mad. I had to turn off the notifications already on every single channel because it's going crazy. People are meeting up. People are connecting like crazy. People are getting help. We're having our first call now tomorrow where I'm going to be helping all freelancers. Then the next day I'm going to help all the brand owners. Next day I'm going to help all the service-based business. So kind of separating everybody in there so that we can best help them. And my team is in there as well. So yeah, it's going really well, man. People are connecting. That was my goal. I wanted to bring that to Ireland because I feel like there's all these groups in the UK or the US, and there's groups everywhere. Like out in Dubai, I'm in a bunch of groups, but I think that there's none in Ireland. And like, there's so many people who DM me now in Ireland. They're like, "Hey, Adam, I'm getting started here. I'm doing this. This is working for me." And when I was first starting, I had nobody really to kind of speak to. Maybe one of my friends, like a videographer or something. But having everybody in the one group is going to be massively beneficial. So I think it's like probably 50% Irish in there right now.
Why do you think Ireland lags behind this stuff?
I don't know. I actually don't know. Good question, man. I really don't know.
I think it could be the education around it. Because like,
yeah.
For instance, my girlfriend is from the States.
Yeah.
Her dad grew up homeless. He retired at 30.
Yeah.
Because he was in medical sales and made millions and millions and millions by the time he was 30. And he grew up with the idea that like, you should have your own business. You should mind your own, build your own thing.
Yeah.
Because you don't own anything for anyone else.
Yeah.
And that was instilled in her. And she's built her own businesses. That was instilled in the son. He's 21 years old, pretty much a millionaire at 21.
Yeah.
And that culture is just there and it's just normal.
Yeah.
And when I speak to her mom, it's just normal,
Yeah.
And I think same in the UK. Before that, we were discussing like different types of like why Ireland is kind of lagging behind with entrepreneurs and stuff. But we were also just discussing about like the nature of who listens to like our content.
Yeah.
And why I was saying that like older people listen to like my content in particular is because like they're trying to find out what's kind of like happening, what are like literally younger people doing.
Yeah.
But the people that are listening are the US people or people that are based in Asia, because I'm based in Asia now full time.
Yeah.
And that it seems like a lot of like Irish people are kind of not catching on as quick to this like online business space.
Yeah.
So like, what recommendation do you have for people that are in that space that are like going through the traditional path, fucking hate what they're doing,
Yeah.
but now trying to leave that world?
Yeah. I suppose Ireland is this kind of small place, right? Ireland is this kind of like small. Ireland's very routine. Like, I think Ireland is very routine, but I think you have to get into like you have to go out of your way to get your network. Like, as I said at the very start of the podcast, when I said there's 2 lessons I got from Tai Lopez, the second one was a self-education will make you a fortune, whereas a formal education will only make you a living. So the self-education, that's all down to you. You have to go get that. So you have to go find your network. You have to go learn from them. So finding your own network is like, that's your job. That's your purpose. So I think it'll kind of fall into place, like kind of, again, like the Bob Proctor thing. That's I just lashed onto Bob Proctor because when he spoke, I was like, whoa, this guy, I connected with him.
Yeah.
Whereas other people connect with Tony Robbins or other people. It's like, it doesn't matter where you get the information once you get the information off someone. So, but you have to go get it. You don't know what you don't know. So you have to go find out what you need to find out to make it happen. So
I want to chat to you about Dubai. So you've obviously been here for a few months. What's some of the advantages you've seen so far from being here?
I suppose I haven't drank since Christmas time.
Nice.
In Marbella. I could not say that. In Marbella, Marbella is like a little party place, really. Maybe Dubai is 2 people coming on holidays in Dubai, but Marbella is like, walking around the place. There's people pulling into beach clubs, stuff like that. So I haven't drank here. I've had maybe at dinners or whatever, I've had like a glass of wine here. I've had one gin tonic here, whatever. So one drink here, but haven't been out, haven't been doing anything like that. So it's been, my social life is very good in that way. So I'm always busy every night of the week where I'm doing something, but it's not party based and it's not hungover based. Because we're getting old now, man. Hangovers are not one day anymore.
100%.
But yeah, so it's amazing that the network out here is fantastic. The inspiration you get here, it's like, you know, when I'm sitting, I purposely try to get into good, maneuver myself into good networks. So when I'm sitting down, like, so many different examples just popped to mind there, but I'm sitting down with people who are like, have 5 or 10x my net worth, and I'm sitting down and they're like, they're talking, and I'm like, whoa, I need to think bigger. I need to think bigger. I need to do the next thing. I need to here, there, and everywhere. It's very inspiring that way. It's very good network wise. Pick up tips and tricks that way. And I suppose it's a good lifestyle here. The weather's good. The gyms are good. You know, it's a good lifestyle. So yeah, I think Dubai's a good place.
100%. I think as well that when you have that network of individuals who are just like 4 or 5 or fucking 10 times wealthier than you, it's like a natural progression to move towards that.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of guys that I was kind of planning to record with this week, but like the majority of them are doing like 100,000 a month, you know, and they're younger than me, you know, and it's the fact that I think that when you're in that space, you're motivated by it.
Yeah.
But one question I have on that is that when do you draw the line between, okay, there's people that are richer than you and more successful than you, but finding your own pattern as well to say like, okay, like I'm on my rise, I shouldn't be chasing it pointlessly. Like how do you put in those right boundaries?
I suppose, like, good question. How do you, like, you don't want to just, I suppose, and this is to go back to the deep thinking thing.
Yeah.
So for example, when I'm thinking deeper, okay, I could take on 5 more clients, but that takes attention away from the current 20 clients that I have right now. So it's very much, okay, let's not take on 5 more clients because we need to get the next level of the infrastructure in place first. So you don't want to just generate a load of money and then lose your reputation, because I see that happening way too much. People take on so many clients, their team can't handle it, their system isn't there, and they kind of scale too fast. So I suppose, yeah, good question. I wouldn't just chase boundaries for no reason. I would make sure I'm on the right path, make sure I have that C goal, and don't veer off that. Like, that's your northern line, personal and professional.
Yeah.
Because if your personal goal is to be healthy, fit, being able to sleep amazing at night time, you're not going to be able to do that by fucking up your reputation.
100%.
So it has to be in line with the two things.
Because there's always going to be someone richer than you.
Of course, man.
There's always going to be someone more successful. Even when you go into, like, you know, you're building your kind of personal brand now, there's always going to be someone who's like one step ahead continuously. So that's why you need to kind of draw that line, is what I've definitely even felt myself. And the health one is great because, like, especially what you do is like service based. If it's more clients, it literally means more work. Now, of course, you have the team around you now. Yeah. But even 2 years ago, it meant relentless more work, which meant you weren't going to the gym, or you weren't sleeping, or you weren't eating well. Yeah. You know,
and that has happened to me.
100%, man. You know, and sometimes you even forget about it, man. Like, I literally, someone who trains 6 days a week, I literally like will forget that I haven't trained in that day, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Same. That's not a good way to live, man. That's not a good way to live. Like, that has happened to me, actually. That's why I moved. That's why I left Marbella in August last year. I just needed a switch because I was in such a bad place, basically. But I've had periods where, like, it could be 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, did I even drink any water today? Yeah. And it's like, that's not, you're not even productive there. You need to step back and be like, okay, instead of being Rambo coming in, spraying everywhere and trying to take everything off, you need to step back and go a little bit of sniper mode and pick your target and be a little bit more smarter. And
that's actually something that I've fucked up so many times. Like, as in, so there's one day of the week where I don't train. During the midweek is on a Tuesday. Yeah. And so I don't go out of the house to go to the gym. Yeah. And there's way too many days where I look down on my watch and I'll have done 700 steps and it's 9 p.m. Yeah. And I'll just be like, oh, I was meant to bring the dog for a walk at 3. Oh, but that happened. And then I was like, oh, I meant to go at 8, but then that happened. You know? So you just have to be just fucking relentless with how you actually choose your energy, because of course, like there's more to goals than just the fucking financial side of things.
Yeah. So for me, we use everything as on Notion right now. So on Notion, Notion's basically your second brain. So put everything on Notion, and that helps massively, but it still doesn't solve the problem. Like, you have to actually consciously make sure you tick the boxes every day.
How do you switch off?
To be honest, I don't actually probably fully switch off, but I don't think I want to. I don't know how to, if I'm honest with you. Like, I don't really know how. Like, I think last night I was awake, like just woke up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I was thinking of something for like fucking 40 minutes, I'd say, trying to get back to sleep. But switching off, I don't know. Like, I'm going to Marbella now in a couple of weeks for Rob's event. I'm speaking at Rob's event, and I'm going to try switch off for like that week or two. I'm going to like actually not be on my computer or not be on my laptop. But to be honest, I don't particularly want to switch off. I love switching off. The past like year, I'm taking Sundays off. Like, I used to work Sundays, and that's kind of good for me now. It's like, I finish, put away the computer, turn off the notifications at like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock on a Saturday, and then you're good then till Monday morning. That's enough for me now. Like, previously I didn't do that for probably 3 years. The first like 3 years I didn't do that at all. So being able to switch off for me is just kind of Sundays, and it's just kind of I've actually 3 phones now, which is too much, but having like a personal phone that doesn't have Gmail, it doesn't have Slack, it doesn't have, my WhatsApps are minimal. So when I'm going out anywhere now after in the evening at like 6 or 7 o'clock, I just take that phone with me, and so that means if I'm out in the evening, I'm technically switched off. So that's very, very helpful.
Chris Williamson calls that his cocaine phone. you might have seen that in Mike Thurston video.
I like him though, Chris Williamson. He's very, 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 very nice.
He's 3 different phones, and one just has like SMS, like not even like WhatsApp and shit. And then he's another one then that has like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and that's the cocaine phone. That when he goes to it, it's the post generally, because like he controls his own like Twitter, whatever. But then he clicks onto it, and like that's like literally like the cocaine in your brain going mental. And then like he has like another phone then that's like for like his friends and for like his girlfriend or something like that. And then he can divide that out, because that's a big thing that I definitely even struggle with, and other people do, because like you wake up and with US clients, like you have like a zillion fucking Slack messages, and you think the best thing to do is to go into that, or at the weekend go into that. And like at the weekend, you feel productive when you're doing those things, but you're just spinning your wheels in some regards. And I'm learning these the hard way, man. You know what I mean? Like really the hard way.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part. Like the first hour of the day when you wake up and your mind is just telling you, go into the office, grab the phone, open up the Slack, open up the emails, like, and have that, like, your mind needs that chaos in the morning. If I can not do that in the morning, I'll have a much more focused and better day. Whereas if I do, I'll be slightly off for the day. That's a battle every morning.
When do you train?
I've recently changed. I used to train midday. Now I tried out a new routine about 6 weeks ago, and I love it. It's working really well, and that's because I got a car as well out in Dubai. So I get up at 5:55. I do like my routine and my study, my reading, my thinking, whatever, for between 6 and 7. From 7 till 9:30, I work. So that's like getting all my top priority work done. Then at 9:30 until 11:30, I'll train, eat. And by 11:30 then, that's 8:30 in Ireland. I'm back at the desk, showered, ready, and my day starts then.
That's what I'm trying to do now as well, because when I go to the gym really early, I come back and I'm just shagged. Like my legs are exhausted. I'm just like, you're really drained, even though like it's best for you. Well, it might be best for you physically, depends on the individual. But then professionally, it's actually not. So what I'm trying to do is like wake up, try to avoid the Slack shit, actually do work. And then when that's like finish the heavier part, then you go train, then you go on to your Slack stuff and whatever, or else you can do it towards the end before you train. Because like I don't know about you, but I hate training in the evenings, because one, I don't have to take caffeine at all after 2 p.m. So that means I can't take pre-workout. And I don't know how you feel about this, but when I train in the evening, all the bullshit that went on during the morning is now just in my brain. So I'm training worse. So like I think it's better in the earlier stages of the day anyway.
Me too. I'm like, okay, if you can do that work, the first work block. So your work block should be like 90 minutes break, 90 minutes. So if you like 1.5 work blocks in the morning, and then you've the huge bulk load of your top priority tasks done for the day. Because then you're going to be in the gym. If you don't do it, you're going to be in the gym and you're going to be thinking, oh, I never did this. Oh, I still need to do it. I better get this done today. This is so important. And then you're mentally not really there. Whereas if you haven't done, you can train, and that like 90 minutes to 2 hours is like your time.
Yeah.
And you can actually push yourself and enjoy it.
Before we finish up, I want to ask you what's your plans for this year? Just go.
Plans for this year, going to Marbella in the next couple of weeks, stay there for a few weeks, then go home to Ireland for maybe a week. Then I'm coming back here and I'm staying.
Yeah.
I'm coming back here and it's the middle of summer. Everyone leaves in the summer. So my birthday is the 9th of July. I'm going to come back around that weekend. And just stay here, man. Just be in a good routine. Like,
won't be too hot.
It will be too hot, but I'm going like that. But that means
perfect.
All like it's there's not a lot of the stuff. A lot of places are closed because it's like the beach clubs are closed. Like, so that's just kind of like that's going to be like work time. That's going to be like productive, good routine style, and that's what I'm most happy with is that time. Like I'm more happier than when I'm in a good routine than when I'm taking time off or whatever the case may be.
Jumping from fucking idea to idea.
Yeah. I don't like in 18 months I took 32 flights. So
what?
Yeah, so that was from like 2021 and 2022. So for my goal for 2023 is like minimal travel. That's the plan.
Man, I want to say a massive thank you for this. I respect everything you've done, man. Respect opinions on so many different things, and like honest to God, you're actually like a big, even like a role model in what I want to do. And I want to say a massive thank you, man.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
That means a lot to me.
More in the future too, man.
You too, man.